Sports Central to be going over my 2019 Week 13 rankings. We've gotten to this point in the season where every single game makes a big difference, and we've got a lot of big changes in the rankings here this week. We're going to start off with 1 through 7. We've got LSU at number 1. Still, they stay in the same position as last week. They beat Ole Miss 58-37. And of course, I don't think you should be allowing 37 points to Ole Miss, but I'm still keeping LSU at that top position of this time. Number 2 is still Ohio State. They beat Rutgers 56-21. Both of those, or LSU and Ohio State, improved to 10-0. Clemson improves to 11-0 after a dominant win over Wake Forest, 52-3. Impressive win there. Clemson's really taken their game up a couple of notches the last couple of weeks. Georgia is my now number 4. They beat Auburn on the road 21-14. And so with that being said, I think Georgia definitely deserves that number 4 spot. I mean, there was some debate whether Alabama should be 4 last week, but now with Tua being injured and out for the rest of the year, it's tough to say whether Alabama should even be considered for the playoff at this point. Number 5 is Oregon. They move in front of Alabama. They beat Arizona at home 34-6. Impressive win there. They are now 9-1, and I think Oregon legit has a chance at the college football playoff. But of course, LSU and Georgia still play each other. I think if either LSU or Georgia, or if LSU beats Georgia, I think Oregon possibly ends up making the playoff this season if they can win the Pac-12 championship. But if Georgia wins and they beat LSU, I mean, that's up for debate whether Oregon can make it or not. But yeah, then again, Oregon, they do have to win the Pac-12 championship if they're going to have any chance of being in the playoff this year. Alabama, though, being at number 6, I moved them down 1, even though they had a dominant win over Mississippi State. Just because Tua being injured, and it's very likely that this season for Alabama could go downhill, or the end of this season could go downhill pretty quick. I think Tua is a huge part of this team. Tua is a very talented player, and I think losing him could make big impacts for Alabama going into the rest of the year. Oklahoma's number 7. They move up 3 after a comeback win over Baylor. They came back from 25 down. They were down 28-3. Sounds a little familiar to the Atlanta Falcons, but they beat Baylor 38-31. They move up 3. They are 9-1 as well. Florida's now number 8. They beat Missouri on the road 23-6. They're a 9-2 team, and I think honestly, the AP poll has them at 10 this week. I think they deserve an 8 position. They're better than Utah, I feel like, than Penn State, of course. I mean, Penn State's up for debate, but yeah, I think Florida is a legit team. They're at number 8 this week. Utah's number 9. They beat UCLA 49-3. They're 9-1. Penn State's my number 10. They beat Indiana in a close one, 34-27. They are 9-1. Michigan's my number 11. They move up 4 this week. Even though they're a 2-loss team, they beat Michigan State big time, 44-10. Very, very impressive win there. It was close at the start, but then Michigan pulled away, and I think that was an impressive win. That's impressive enough for me to put Michigan up a couple of spots. They've also done very well the last 3 games. I think they've blown out 2 of their last 3. Minnesota moves down 5 positions to number 12 after their loss at Iowa, and I actually predicted this upset. I thought that Iowa was going to get the win here. And of course, I think Minnesota, I just thought it'd be a little bit too much pressure for them as kind of the program that they are. And I thought that Penn State and Minnesota game, the only reason why Minnesota won that was because of Penn State's simple mistakes, is what I think. And you can kind of hear more about that in my game preview for Minnesota and Iowa. That's kind of why I thought Minnesota won that one. And don't get me wrong, Minnesota is still an excellent team, and they've had a great year. Very, very impressed with that team and how PJ Fleck has basically risen them up. Minnesota, after taking that loss, I'm moving them down to number 12. Baylor's my number 13 after losing to Oklahoma. They dominated that first half. They looked like a very, very good team, and I think Baylor legit should still stay at number 13. I'm moving them down only 1 this week. Wisconsin traveled to Nebraska, and it was a close one at times, but they did end up beating Nebraska 37-21. They do move down 1, though, just so that Michigan can rise up. But yeah, Wisconsin, of course, I mean, really, they do still have a chance at making the Big Ten championship game. That game where they play Minnesota in the final week of the regular season, that is going to be huge. Number 15, Notre Dame. They beat Navy 52-20. Very impressive win there, and they move up 1. Auburn lost to Georgia 14-21. They move down 2. Iowa beat Minnesota, so they're moving up 5 this week. I think Iowa, obviously, they're out of the Big Ten championship picture at this point. But yeah, still I think Iowa is a decent team. They should make a pretty good bowl game if they can win out from here. Oklahoma State is number 18. They move up 6 over a simple win against Kansas, and the reason for that is because I believe that they're better than Memphis, Boise State, and Cincinnati. Of course, Boise State had a good game against New Mexico, but that's just New Mexico. And Cincinnati was close to South Florida. That's why Cincinnati's moved down 4 this week. And then, of course, Memphis and Houston. Houston led Memphis for a little while. I don't think that a team like Memphis, or especially Cincinnati, would not beat Oklahoma State right now. And so with that being said, that's why Oklahoma State is moved up 6 this week. Yeah, Memphis, Boise State, Cincinnati, we just went over those briefly. But yeah, Cincinnati moves down below Memphis and Boise State. Just because, I don't think that a team should be ranked in the top 20 if they struggle with South Florida. And South Florida, really, let me remind you, they have not been a very good team this year. And for that reason, that's why they're 21. 22 is Texas A&M. They enter the rankings this week after a win against South Carolina 30-6. They're 7-3. Virginia Tech also enters the rankings after a shutout win at Georgia Tech. And of course, that is Georgia Tech. You should dominantly beat them. But yeah, 45-0. I was impressed with that. Virginia Tech enters this week. Indiana's number 24. They lost to Penn State 34-27, and so they moved down 1. I think they're still going to be in the rankings though, just because they've had a good season. They're at 7-3, and I believe that they would beat SMU or Appalachian State, possibly even Iowa State. That's why they're still in the rankings. SMU's number 25. They had a bye this week. They're 9-1, but they are entering the rankings after Texas Navy and Kansas State all lose. Their first 5 out this week are Appalachian State, Iowa State, Virginia, Texas, and USC. And I think even though Texas has been in and out of the rankings a lot this season, but yeah, after another loss, this time against Iowa State, I think they might be out of the rankings for the rest of the year. Yeah, once again, dropped out is Texas at 20. They were 20 last week. Navy was 21, and Kansas State was 25. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on these rankings and comments below. What do you guys think? Who's your college football playoff prediction at this time of the season? Of course, we're starting to get to the time of the year where, once again, every game is a big deal. You got to win your games, or else you could easily be knocked out of the playoff picture. For Oregon, they have to win out. It's like no exception for them. You can say that about Big 12 teams as well. You'd expect the Big 12 to be out at this time of the year. Of course, the Big 12 hasn't really been as good of a conference this season. But yeah, once again, let me know your guys' predictions on the college football playoff in the comments below. I find those pretty interesting. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Once again, stay tuned for college football previews and NFL previews coming up this week. And thank you guys all for watching. Show some support if you'd like to, and I will see you all later.